The hearing into the riots will resume in September.
Well, for more on this story, we can speak now to Robert Gutsche. He's a senior lecturer at Lancaster University in the UK. He's also the editor of the book, The Trump Presidency, Journalism and Democracy. Thank you very much for joining us here on France 24. First of all, what do you make of what's been said in Washington during this latest hearing?
Well, it certainly is showing us the desire that Donald Trump had to not recognize the election results and then certainly to try and stay in office. What's fascinating also are the text messages and other forms of communication of people calling out to him to take action, to do something. And so the reporter's right by saying he made some choices not to do things. We have evidence that people have been saying you're in a position to stop this, and he was choosing not to. So I think that in of itself is really damning about his sort of way of trying to distance himself from having some sort of control or not over the situation.
Now, once this investigation is over and the hearings are all done and dusted, is there a chance that criminal charges can be brought against Donald Trump?
Well, that's always been the question, right? And I think it's up to the Department of Justice, of course, to see if they have legal enough evidence, if they have avenues, and if they have the desire of themselves to take this forward. I think what's really happening, though, is this is using the court of public opinion for Republicans and Democrats, perhaps Republicans to maybe move themselves away from Donald Trump into these midterm elections and into the next presidential election cycle, but also for Democrats to use anger to motivate voters, which has always been a bit of a challenge for Democrats, to motivate voters to go to election booths to vote for their candidates in the future. So it's up to the Justice Department, and they've been very hesitant to take this very far. So we'll see if this evidence makes their way into their purview.
This has been another primetime TV event for American audiences, of course. How much of a game changer will it be for public opinion that these testimonies have been broadcast?
What's fascinating is this has had record turnout for ratings. I mean, this has been big time, primetime TV. I think what we're going to have to wait and see really is how these images and how the testimony, if you will, how the visuals, because it's very much been a production, makes its way into those election cycles. It's not going to end. Its influence isn't going to end with that hearing closing. It's going to be reproduced in campaign ads. It's going to be reproduced in further congressional testimonies. It's going to be reproduced in presidential campaigns. And so I think the one thing that we're going to get from this hearing is endless amounts of visual and audio content that's going to really fuel at least the first stages of the next presidential election. Its power does not just end with the hearing.
Now, this hearing was the last before the summer break, with more hearings due in September. This isn't the end of the road for this investigation, of course. What else can we expect?
Well, I think we have a lot more questions of the people who've been sitting in the room with Donald Trump. I mean, I don't know how much more really we can say Donald Trump had a role in this. I mean, I think that was the major play out of these hearings. But I think there are much more, there are many more people who need to be questioned. I think what's happening is a lot of these congressional aides and a lot of these presidential aides and others are coming through to try and whitewash their involvement in Trump's rise to success as some sort of political way to keep them in the game. But I think that we have a lot more questions for people around that, such as why there wasn't Capitol security, why there wasn't a bigger presence of forces. That's something that came up again in this last hearing. But I don't think the public's really satisfied with how was this able to happen, and what are we going to do in the future to protect people in those buildings.
Okay, Robert Gutsche at Lancaster University, thank you very much for joining us.